Peace and love, family. Welcome back to another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and I am also in a state of somewhat confusion as to still yet again wondering why my format is messed up. Since I'm broadcasting from my phone this time, I thought I was cool selecting a portrait format. And right now I'm seeing two formats being shown. One is a portrait version of, of horizontal or landscape, and the other one is what appears to be like it's supposed to be the regular full horizontal, and it's got part of my head cut off. Can't call it, don't know what's going on with StreamYard. I thought that I was past this. Anyway, I progressed. One of these days, we'll get it situated where it's working properly again. In the meantime, glad to be back with you. Back in Tampa, broadcasting, checking in from here. Outside, sun is beaming down, and we are going to make do. It may be hard to see the comments, but I think I might be able to see your comments. At any rate, again, it's always good to be with you today. A couple of weeks ago, we did this whole thing dealing with resist the temptation to lower your vibration. And we addressed like a dozen different things that will lower people's vibration. And we ended up doing, I spoke at a church, Transforming Love Community. Greetings, Curly Conscious King. Good to see you in the space, brother. Okay, I don't know if this is posting or not. Trying to let the comment show up, but I don't know if it is or if it isn't. At any rate, and if it is, I don't know how to make it go away. At any rate, one of these days I'll have somebody who's doing all this background stuff, and I can just kind of focus on what the topic is. But as I was saying, we had this thing on things that lower your vibration. I'm not going to let this be one of the things that lowers mine in terms of the technology challenges with the service that we use to stream to Facebook and YouTube. At any rate, we did some general healing on like all 12 of those things. And while we didn't necessarily specifically address this, another thing that really definitely does lower our vibration is really all of the ego-based things that we do, that we engage in, lower our vibration. The ego is an acronym for edging God out. All of the things that we do to glorify our sense of separate self, as opposed to the universal oneness of us all and the innate divinity that exists within us all, and honoring that within ourselves and all others. Pretty much anything else lowers our vibration, keeps us from being the fullness of who it is that we really are and that we were divinely designed to be. And one of those things, this isn't a thing, like I said, that was mentioned in those other 12 things that were mentioned, but it certainly is a thing that lowers our vibration, and that's our need to be right. And so our focal point for today, if you've seen the topic as listed, is the need to be right versus the need to get it right. If you have an idea of what the difference is between the need to be right and the need to get it right, I encourage you to drop it in the chat. I may or may not be able to pull it up on the screen. But what do you think is primarily the difference between the need to be right and the need to get it right? Okay. These are two actually very different things. They may sound very similar, but vibrationally, energetically, and functionally, they're very, very, very different, and they're motivated by very, very different things. Okay. Um, so I'm curious as to what you perceive the difference to be, and what category would you put yourself more in? Somebody who has a need to be right, or somebody who has a need to get it right, or you're tapped more into the need to be right or the need to get it right. Okay. So let me say that one is indicative of a fixed mindset, where the other is indicative of a growth mindset. One is kind of rooted in a person's um, attempt to self-validate. The other is rooted more in a person's attempt to align. Okay. Not that self-validating is a bad thing, but there is energetically certainly a difference. Okay. When you look at relationships that people have with other people, a lot of times one or both parties end up, kind of engaging in this need to be right. There are arguments that form because one or more people was, engaging this need to be right. That need to be right is really rooted in the ego. Okay. A lot of times, you know, whew, I very much had a need to be right. And not only did I have a need to be right, I had a need to prove to someone else that I was right. Okay. That's not constructive, however, right? You know, a person can think that they win an argument because they presented their argument better than the other person did. And so the whole thing about the need to be right, what it's fundamentally looking at is that one is right and the other has to be wrong. One wins and the other has to lose. Whereas the flip side of that, when one has a genuine desire to get it right, the greater view is how can everybody win in this situation? Okay. So many relationships, whether we're talking about countries or whether we're talking about individuals, the demise is a result of one or both being hell bent on being right. Okay. Again, I was a person who operated in that energy once upon a time. Um, and it took some knocks on the head, if you will, um, for me to realize that all I was doing was participating in my own demise without recognizing it. You see, if there is a battle of egos and your ego wins, in that situation, you're the bigger loser in that situation because you think that your victories are based on the actions of your ego. And if you're in that twisted type of thinking that your egoic actions, the things that you do to edge God out, are what lead to you being victorious, then you're going to engage in more of those types of actions. You're going to engage that type of mindset more, which actually is detrimental to your spiritual growth, development, and unfoldment. If you're thinking that the ego is what leads you to victory, when in actuality, the ego is what it leads you away from the path. It leads you into greater degrees of suffering, bringing suffering upon yourself and bringing suffering upon other people, including those that you may, feel like you care about and that care about you. Okay. Versus this need to get it right that doesn't say, I'm right and you're wrong. It says, rather, how can I show up in a way that makes a more life affirming difference? Okay. How can I show up in a way that brings healing? How can I show up in a way that demonstrates love? How can I show up in a way that embodies compassion and understanding as opposed to judgment and negativity? How can I bring peace and harmony? Okay. And a lot of times people will falsely think that if they can just get someone else to see things how they see it, or if they can get someone else to think how it is that they think, then that will bring peace. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And while that might be an easier path to have the illusion of peace, it's not actually what brings us to a sense of genuine, authentic well-being, or actually establishing that sense of genuine, authentic well-being for another person who may see and think very differently than you may, right? Okay. And so what does it mean to desire to get it right? To desire to get it right. You know, there's a, I think about this in terms of this need to be right versus the need to get it right. I think about something I came across years ago. Knowledge is proud that he knows so much. Wisdom is humbled that she knows no more. Yeah. The need to be right is rooted in pride. The need to get it right is rooted in humility. A recognition that there may be some information that I have that's accurate, but there may also be something that I'm not seeing in terms of how I might be able to present this differently, in terms of how I might be able to perceive this differently, in terms of recognition that while I'm very clear about what it is that I'm seeing, it's very possible that I may have some blind spots. How can I see what's currently in my blind spot so that I can actually avoid creating a horrible accident, right? Okay. And so there's a certain degree of humility that's required for that. There's a certain amount of closeness to God that's required in the need to get it right. Years ago, a couple of decades ago, I heard at the time a very well-known pastor deliver a sermon called Ain't Nobody Right But Us. And it talked about how people in different religious groups, you know, have this mindset that we are the only ones who are right. We see it exactly, we see the exact truth exactly like it is. And anybody who doesn't see things exactly how we see it or espouse it exactly the way that we espouse it is wrong. And on some level, you know, there's like kind of an air of superiority that comes with that. But what also comes with that is chaos. What also comes with that is discord. What also comes with that can be resentment. What comes with that is a moving of hearts further apart rather than a bringing of hearts closer together into a sense of oneness. Okay? All right. And because what we're about, those of us who choose to participate in these Sunday Hope and Healing sessions, because what we're about is entering into and dwelling in a sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, because what we're about is being constantly engaged in a path that's going to lead us closer to fulfilling our purpose for arriving on this rotating sphere that we call the earth, because we're consciously engaged in a spiritual journey where we're endeavoring to grow into the fullest, most fully self-expressed versions of ourselves, where we are the most peaceful that we can be, where we're the most joyful that we can possibly be, where we're the most fulfilled that we can possibly be. Because we're engaged in this, we perhaps can also take some time to reflect introspectively and submit ourselves to taking an internal inventory of what it is that's going on inside of us, what it is that's motivating us, and what it is that we can do differently to grow and to spiritually evolve, so that what we are sowing out into the world, instead of it being seeds of discord, chaos, and confusion, is seeds of love, harmony, grace, and healing. Okay? Because it is a fact that, like my late grandfather, John A. Hall, used to say, you can't plant corn and expect to grow tomatoes, or you can't plant tomatoes and expect to grow corn. The way that Jesus put it is, whatsoever you sow, that shall you also reap. And so, because we want to live in a world that is vibrating in the frequency of love, because we want to live in a world where peace is reigning, then we have to also sow those seeds. And the way that we sow those seeds is by weeding out all of the things that would choke those seeds out, watering and nurturing those seeds that will actually result in the harvest that we seek. Okay? All right. And so, in terms of the need to get it right, when you're focused on the need to get it right, you're not always trying to prove the other person, the other group wrong, right? You're not engaging in the active futility of, trying to win somebody over to your side. A lot of times people think how they think. They see things how they see them, and they may never give in to your version of logic, right? We're in a world right now in the United States of America, where I'm broadcasting from, where there's a lot of political divide, where there is a lot of very strong agreement. People on two very different sides that are very adamant from the position they stand, and view the other side with a great degree of vitriol, right? With a lot of righteous indignation, okay? And both are convinced that they're the ones that are right. But if we can make a paradigm shift from us needing to be the ones that are right, when we can make the shift from wanting right to be on our side to wanting to be on the side of right, when you want right to be on your side, nobody can tell you that you're wrong, even if you are. If you're wanting to be on the side of right, you look at yourself and you say to yourself, oh, maybe I'm not right in this situation. Maybe there's something more to the picture than what it is that I'm seeing so far, right? Okay. When we're wanting to get it right, it keeps us in a state of wanting to continuously go to God and say, how can I see this differently? How can I do a little bit differently? What errors are there inside of me that are keeping me where it is that I am right now, in this state of frustration that I'm in right now, in this state of anger that I'm in right now, in this state of irritation that I'm in right now? How can I see things differently? What's the bigger picture that's beyond the scope of what it is that I'm looking at through my own current limited lenses? Okay. When you have an attitude and a mindset of desiring to get it right, rather than being the one who is right in your relationships and focusing on how can I get it right, you become maybe a little bit more concerned with listening than speaking. When you're desiring to get it right in your interactions with other people, when you're desiring to truly get it right, you may ask to be shown to see things from their perspective, from the other side's perspective, because there is something valid in where it is that they're coming from. When you desire to get it right, to truly get it right, you put yourself in a posture, in a heart posture, where you are willing and perhaps able to course correct when it is pointed out that you indeed are actually in error. Okay? Because it really is never about proving that somebody else is in error. That is really largely a distraction from wherever you are in error, wherever it is that you aren't properly aligned, right? And so we're going to do a brief healing. We're not going to go the whole hour, although it is already almost a half hour after we started. But we're going to do a little bit of healing to actually assist us with this. Okay, I'm going to start with a prayer. When I get to the specified point, just plug your own name in there. You can say it out loud or say it silently. If you have a loved one, no, we're not going to do this for a loved one right now. We're just going to make it about our own growth right now, because I don't want us getting into the act of saying this other person needs to get this right. Because that's part of us tapped into our own thinking that we're right about the situation, that the other person is wrong. So for today's Sunday Hope and Healing session, when we get to the point in the prayer, we're going to plug our own names in, just our own names in. Okay. Greetings, Jennifer Bliss. Good to see you in the space today. Okay. I think that, okay, it's showing you. And I don't know how. Okay. All right. I think it's off now. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start with the prayer. I'm going to ask you to center your attention in your heart, because we want our hearts to be right. Really a huge part of getting it right is having your heart right. Now, I wear this bracelet practically every day that says, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of your life. And so we want our hearts to be right. We want our hearts to be properly aligned. Okay. And so we're going to focus on our heart center, breathing in the light of God's love into our hearts, breathing out the light of God's love from our hearts, so that our hearts are focused in the frequency of love, of drawing in love and expressing love, pure love. Okay. From this state, heart-centered state, we're going to begin our prayer. God, I know that you're a healer, that you are a transformer. And through the union we share through the power of your pure love, I'm so thankful for the blessing and the privilege to be able to call forth and demonstrate your healing on the behalf of whoever's stating their name out loud or silently right now, for the purpose of neutralizing from the point of the causal root and eliminating our need to be right, our desire to be right, our thirst and our yearning and our hell-bent attachment on being right from the point of the causal root of the entire energy field of every strand of DNA and every cell of our bodies, and transmuting that into and replacing it with the humility and the awareness to have a genuine, authentic desire to get it right, to get it right in our relationships, to get it right with you, to get living on earth right, to get it right, to be properly aligned with the way that you divinely set it up in a way that supports our highest and best good and the highest and best good of everyone involved, even if that transcends our current awareness, but that allows us to be able to grow into a fuller, more purely authentic version of ourselves that is divinely aligned with who it is that we came to be and express as spiritual beings in the earth realm. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you, God. Thank you for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right. And so let's actually first address this idea that if we're not right, then we're not good enough. Let's address this subconscious belief that if we're not right, we're somehow not good enough. This belief system that if we're not right, it diminishes our value. All right. And let's replace that with our value is innate. The awareness that our value is innate, and the way that we align properly in terms of our own innate value that can never be detracted from, is directly tied to our ability to shift when it is that we aren't actually right. And so it's okay. So sometimes it might weaken us to be wrong, or we might experience a weakness or a weakening within our energetic field if we are actually wrong. Okay. And we might feel unsafe to be wrong. Okay. All right. But I want to switch that energetically for us to feel most safe when we get it right. Okay. To feel most safe when we get it right. Okay. To be able to see the clear distinction between the needs of our ego to survive and the needs of our soul to thrive. Okay, strengthen us all for that. And to strengthen our proclivity to feed the authentic needs of our soul. Okay. To feed and nourish the authentic needs of our soul. The needs of our soul support our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of everybody else too. All right. Okay. Let's get at times. Let's address times where us not being right before resulted in some form of punishment for us, or even some form of lack of approval for us. We want to transmute that into actually receiving the rich rewards of life for being aligned with that which affirms life. Okay. Which I guess is another way of saying having our serotonin and dopamine levels optimized when we actually make healthy decisions. Okay, strengthen us all for that. Okay. Something I also want to take a look at real briefly here is, from an emotional standpoint, is an internal arrogance. Okay, some emotional arrogance. And let's transmute that emotional arrogance into actually genuine, authentic confidence and into a confident humility. Okay, I believe that there's a lot that masks itself as confidence. Arrogance is not confidence. Arrogance is insecurity that's masked as confidence. Okay, if you've got a funky room and you spray some air freshener in there, you didn't make the funky smell go away. You just masked the smell. Okay. If you want to have a room that actually smells good, then you've got to eliminate what it was that was stinking the place up in the first place. Whatever that was that was giving off that negative odor, you've got to get rid of that. What I'm saying here is we've got to address the root cause. All right. And so let's strengthen our confidence. Let's strengthen our confidence by increasing our ability to comfortably operate without the mask. See, if you've got to wear a mask to feel secure, then you don't feel secure. You feel secure in the mask, not in yourself. Okay. So let's transmute that sense of security with a mask to having that sense of security within our own beingness, to actually feel self-secure. Okay. Not based on these external things that are requirements for us to feel secure, external things that we lean on or use as a crutch to feign some sense of security, but to actually feel secure, to actually feel whole and complete. Let's boost particularly that feeling complete. Okay. All right. When we actually feel complete, we don't take these other external things and use them to try to fill a void. Okay. All right. When we actually feel complete, we don't feel the need to make excuses. Let's strengthen our ability to operate free of excuses and operate with a willingness to be held accountable. Okay. Yeah, because if you don't get it right, there is a certain need for accountability there. Okay. And so let's look at accountability, because accountability can be something that makes us feel unsafe. It makes us feel unsafe because it points out the ways that we might not be right. Okay. So I want to strengthen us in terms of our ability to hold ourselves accountable and even to be held accountable by others. Let's strengthen our ability to allow ourselves to be held accountable by others who are in love, supporting us in who it is that we have said we want to be, how it is that we have said that we want to actually show up. Okay. All right. And want to also strengthen our ability to actually reach our goals that we're setting for ourselves in terms of who it is that we want to be and how it is that we want to show up. Okay. All right. And to be able to receive feedback that actually supports our highest and best good, and to be able to implement that which supports our highest and best good. Okay. Without identifying with damage to our ego in the process. Okay. But actually experience it as a feeling of a void for something that had previously been broken within us. Okay. Allow that healing balm, that salve of well-being to cover and fill in with the light of God's love the areas where we had perhaps experienced some trauma, some tear in our internal beingness, and to be able to actually be able to have a greater sense of integrity, where integrity isn't compromised, but we're able to actually live and move and breathe and exist in a sense of greater integrity. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And so another thing, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at ways that we have received external rewards for making other people look bad or look stupid. external rewards. Maybe it was people giving us praise for making somebody else look bad or look dumb. Maybe it was laughs that we end up receiving for, cracking jokes on somebody else at their expense. And all of the other ways where we had to actually put somebody else down to have a semblance of feeling good about ourselves. Okay. I will admit to you that I used to do that in my life. And I'm very thankful that I was shown that that was not the way that I really wanted to go, that that wasn't going to lead me to the destination that I was seeking. And on a very regular basis, even today, I'm corrected and shown, you didn't get it right here. You didn't get it right here. That shift over here. Okay. So let's strengthen us to be able to welcome the correction and see it as getting us closer to being where it is that we ultimately desire to be. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Another thing I want to take a look at right now is I'm getting the element of fire in terms of the way that internal conflict consumes us. Okay. So look at the way that internal conflict consumes us. There's so often that we as human beings make mistakes in life that we don't allow ourselves to even acknowledge as a mistake, or we don't actually allow ourselves to recognize that we were wrong. We weren't operating from a standpoint of wholeness in this or that particular thing, this or that particular area. And so we might become comfortable, we might feel safe with the coping mechanisms that we designed. Okay. And unfortunately, those are sometimes coping mechanisms that serve to our detriment rather than our well-being, but we don't see it as being to our detriment because it's helping us to feel safe in the moment, or it helped us to feel safe in the past. And so we end up getting stuck. Okay. And so let's actually remove the cinder blocks from our spiritual feet and actually give us wings to fly with. So we release that load, we lighten our load, we lighten the internal load of the internal conflict that we carry, and the cognitive dissonance. Okay, and the ways that we gaslight ourselves and other people. Okay, the way that we gaslight ourselves and the way that we gaslight other people, and replace that with again, a confident humility to be able to pivot, to make the adjustment, to apologize when necessary, or when it's helpful or useful to do so, and to make amends, to properly make amends. That make amends is a real big thing. It's not just saying the word sorry, but it's wanting to do right by someone and then acting upon that, wanting to mend whatever the damage was, not placate it, but actually bring actual mending, repairing. Okay. All right. And to be able to accept without judgment or shame, that we could have done better in the past. Okay. To be able to recognize that the decisions that we made and the things that we did in the past that weren't for our highest and best good or the highest and best good of others were based on whatever stuff was going on inside of us at the time. And while not using that as an excuse, we definitely do not want to use that as an excuse. So we're going to address that energetically. While we won't want to use that as an excuse, we also don't want to use that as a thing that keeps us stuck in the lower vibration of assigning a sense of shame or need to be punished to ourselves either, while at the same time acknowledging and welcoming whatever the authentic consequences of whatever our error was. Okay. But to be able to go on from that, move forward in a way that is loving towards ourselves and loving towards others as well. Okay. All right. I'm going to do 2 more corrections, then we're going to close it down for today. All right. One of those things that we're going to address is emotional codependence. Okay. I want to address that from the root cause. Codependence is a form of addiction. It's not to like a substance like alcohol or nicotine or cocaine or whatever, but it is an addiction. It's a more people-related addiction that takes us away from us being our real, genuine, true, authentic selves. Okay. So I want to address that codependency within us that exists collectively, societally, and within our families or the environments where we came up, so to speak. Okay. So that was one of the things I wanted to address. And the other thing that I want to address is I want to address the belief system that if we're not right, that we're doomed to damnation. Okay. And I want to transmute that belief system to really surrendering ourselves, our lives, and our perception to God and to the light of God's love, to God's all-seeing eye, infinite wisdom, and unfailing love. I'm going to boost that within all of us. That is what we are most subject to. That is what most captures our attention. Okay. All right. God, thank you so much for the healing that's happened today. Thank you for strengthening us and helping us to properly align to get it right. To get it right. Not simply to be right, but to show up in a way that demonstrates a genuine, authentic maturity, emotionally and spiritually. And I bear witness to our wholeness again and give thanks for these and all other blessings. Ashe and Amen. All right, beloved. Again, it's been wonderful being with you today. I'm broadcasting, and right now I'm itching like crazy. There's something Standing right in front of these bushes, I got all these little ants, um, like crawling around my feet, and something has been biting me up a storm. I did not intend to be lunch today, but it is what it is. Anyway, until we meet each other again, I bid you adieu with peace and love, and I'll catch you next time.